people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Early next month, the Russian Hurricane
Was born and based out of Italy.
Maria Cecchi is set to return to action December 10th opposite the ring. Daisy Preston of the
Born in the United Kingdom, but based out of Spain.
Maria Cecchi, you might be familiar with that name. That's the same Maria Cecchi who was in action earlier this year in May, suffering her first professional loss to Mary Romero, also of Spain.
Former EBU champion.
Was more recently in action against unbeaten Ellie Scottney.
Of Catford.
Mary Romero, she gave Maria Cecchi her first professional loss in a fight that I completely misread ahead of it. To the eye, it seemed like Maria Cecchi had all the right ingredients to win that fight, to deal with a come-forward pressure fighter, an aggressive one like Mary, but it was Mary that had all the right ingredients
To deconstruct Maria Cecchi and cause her to fall apart at the seams.
It wasn't pretty.
Not a fun fight to watch at all. Maria Cecchi's excessive holding and dirty boxing, it was embarrassing.
Now that she's on the rebound, she's going to be taking on Daisy Preston, who's got an upside-down record. Daisy Preston, God bless her, the woman never won a fight, sporting a professional record of no wins, 4 losses with 1 draw, having been stopped 3 times. 3 out of the 4 fights she lost by way of knockout.
I understand that Maria Cecchi's on the rebound and they've got to ease her back into activity. I get that, but fighting this kind of fighter, you're never going to sharpen your tools. I don't know, I suppose that it's okay for now for Maria Cecchi to fight somebody like this, but in the future, if she wants to improve, if she wants to get better, she's got to stop fighting these no-hopers. What, the professional record is 7 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 2 knockouts?
You'll notice that this show is not a Matchroom show. You'll notice that this show is not a Matchroom card.
It's not.
Maria Cecchi has boxed on Matchroom shows, at least 2 Matchroom shows in the past. The Beck Connolly fight and the Mary Romero fight I just referenced. It doesn't appear that she has an ongoing relationship with Matchroom. Not anymore. Not based on how she looked. Not based on that performance. It was embarrassing.
You know that sometimes it's not even whether or not you win or lose, but how you win. Or, in Maria's case, how you lose.
She's down bad opposite the ring. Mary Romero, they stepped her up and she started to unravel. That's what happened. And it ain't got to be the end of the world. It is just 1 professional loss in what is the first 7, 8 fights.
She can rebound. She can get back in the winner's bracket. She can improve.
She can do that. But a part of getting better is stepping her up gradually. Stepping her up fight by fight, so she grows more accustomed to fighting fighters that can fight back. Opposite the ring, Mary Romero, she looked like a deer in the headlights. She couldn't imagine, didn't know what to do opposite the ring, a fighter that wasn't there to lay down, that wasn't just going to let her tee off.
Hard to say that Maria Cecchi will ever arrive at the forefront of the world title picture, the world title scene. The super bantamweight division has a proliferation of talented, young, unbeaten up-and-comers.
Contenders, champions, that entire pocket between 118 and 126, featherweight, 126 pounds. There's a proliferation of talent at those weights, and it's hard to say that Maria Cecchi...
It's hard to say she's ever going to win an alphabet title. It's hard to say that she'll ever really be a part of the world title picture, the world title scene, but she is on the rebound.
She is set to return to action early next month, and she will be opposite the ring. Daisy Preston, and you can make of that what you will.
In reference to the world title picture, the world title scene between 140 and 147 pounds, newly crowned undisputed super lightweight champion Chantal Cameron.
She's still beating that drum. She's still adamant that she wants to run it back with Jessica McCaskill, but this time at Jessica's weight, at 147 pounds, saying, considering you were adamant to come to 140 to box me for my belts and undisputed, when are we going to do it again at 147 for your belts? I want to fight and your belts. She tagged Jessica McCaskill. I still haven't seen Chantal Cameron address the WBO's recent order, ordering her to take on Christina Lenardatu, two-time former WBO super lightweight champion Christina Lenardatu of Greece. Chantel's more interested in becoming a two-division champion. She seems more interested in taking everything that Jessica McCaskill still has. And I don't know that Jessica and Rick are going to be receptive to a rematch, receptive to a second fight, because in all likelihood, the second fight would go exactly the same way the first one did. Jessica McCaskill, God bless her, she is a world-class pressure fighter.
She can completely deconstruct most other fighters at or around these weights by putting a squeeze on them and applying pressure. It just so happens that Chantal Cameron, she ain't one of those fighters. She can handle Jessica.
She just did. And if there is a second fight, in all likelihood, she'll handle her again and take what belts Jessica is still in possession of. So if you're Jessica McCaskill and if you're Rick Ramos, do you really want to run it back with this fighter?
You know, Natasha Jonas is interested in Jessica McCaskill.
But last I checked, Rick Ramos himself was not receptive to that idea, receptive to that proposition. So if you're not receptive to a Jonas fight...
What, you're going to fight Chantal again?
Isn't it possible that they may be able to ask Sky Sports and Boxer for more money for a Jonas fight than they stand to make running it back with Chantal who just beat her?
Isn't it possible that they can leverage the situation to their advantage, because Natasha seems to want to move south of junior middleweight. She seems to want to move down.
She would be the challenger, and Jessica would be the champion.
And the same is true of a Chantal Cameron rematch if Chantal were to move up and fight Jessica for a second time. The problem is Chantal already beat you. You fight her again, she may beat you again.
It's hard to know what Team McCaskill are going to do.
Definitely not a free agent. He has one fight left on his contract. If we have to let the courts decide that, so forth, Lawrence Okolie could come and see me and we'll probably resolve it. But at the same time, I'm not making that investment financially, mentally, physically, not doing the job that we've done for Lawrence Okolie, not kept to every single word we've ever promised him, to be disrespected. And that's via social media, and that's by someone trying to leave a contract that is still in force. So we'll do what we can to protect that. I've no problem with Lawrence Okolie, but that's our position.
Lawrence Okolie wanting to leave the Matchroom banner for Sky Sports and Boxer on the premise that Sky Sports and Boxer made him a better offer, a lucrative one, moving forward. I remember it was Eddie Hearn himself who stated the offer made to Lawrence Okolie was an offer that would see him becoming the face of the platform.
And if the offer from Sky and Boxer was better than his existing deal with Matchroom, that doesn't make Lawrence the bad guy because he wants to leave.
Not that by itself. Not that in and of itself. It's how he handled the situation, I think.
Making certain associations between his current handlers and certain movie characters. Calvin Kendi of Django.
The more recent post he made where he stated,
I believe to my soul, I have a massive chip on my shoulder about things that have happened to me over this last year. I want to let every organization, agency, and person who ever did me wrong to know that we're at war, in and out of the ring. That means I become unified champion. That means I become three-weight world champion. That means I smash through your stable. That means I spend every penny I have on legal battles.
that means I bring as much media attention to the wrongdoings of these fools who mistreat and use boxers.
He hasn't done that yet.
And this has been going on for months. I'm of the opinion that if Lawrence would have handled this situation a bit more delicately,
Matchroom would have let him go. Matchroom would have released him. And here's why.
he only has one fight left on his existing deal, an active and actionable contract according to Eddie Hearn. But if you're Eddie Hearn, how much do you really want to spend on Lawrence Okolie's last fight under contract when you more or less already know he wants to go? he wants to leave.
Do you want to go breaking the bank for Lawrence Okolie's last fight under contract when you know after that contract is up, he's going to go somewhere else?
No, of course not. If you're Eddie Hearn, why would you want to spend an arm and a leg on Lawrence Okolie's last fight if you know he's going to leave? The cheaper alternative would be to just cut him loose and let him go.
And if not for Lawrence Okolie taking shots at Eddie Hearn, would appear to be shots at Eddie Hearn, would appear to be shots at Matchroom, I'm of the opinion that they would have let him go. But they're not going to tolerate that disrespect from a guy they spent money on.
They used their resources to promote you as a fighter, you and your fights, and for that, you've publicly taken shots at them.
It's not even thinking that Eddie Hearn is this nice guy, this great guy, and he would have just let Lawrence walk away scot-free. It's the business aspect of it that leads me to believe that if Lawrence would have played his cards right, they would have let him go without incident.
Because business-wise, it makes no business sense to continue to spend money on a fighter who very soon you won't be promoting. But if not for Lawrence's transgressions...
So Sky Sports and Boxer want to pay you more money than Matchroom is paying you right now.
Matchroom, based on Lawrence Okolie's metrics for his fights, his ticket sales, and whatever he drums up in terms of viewership, they likely tell themselves that we don't want to match that. This guy ain't worth that kind of money to us. So if Sky Sports and Boxer have got that kind of money for him, more power to him, and we can send him off.
Let him go. It'll be their problem now.
But Lawrence himself, I believe, has created a stalemate, a standoff to where Matchroom aren't going to tolerate that disrespect coming from him.
And even now, I think there's a more amicable solution than taking this to the courts, a legal battle, because you've got to think about it. You take this to court, that's more money out of your pocket.
And for what?
Why?
Because this guy's still under contract and he still owes you one fight? Think about it. You're going to spend money on the court fees, plus you're going to spend money on this guy's next fight, even if you win the case.
Best case scenario, you win the case, he stays under contract, then what?
What, you want to have to promote this guy's next fight?
How fucking awkward would that be?
This is not dissimilar from what we saw between Terence Crawford and Bob Arum. You know, Terence, he felt it was Bob Arum's fault that the Spence fight didn't happen, when in all actuality, Bob Arum was just as powerless in that situation as Terence Crawford is now. He went as far as taking him to court for failure.
Terence Crawford said a lot of things. He basically gave Bob Arum and Top Rank a piece of his mind, and in doing so, he burnt that bridge like Lawrence is burning this bridge. So you're not happy at Matchroom anymore.
You can leave on amicable terms. It happens all the time. Billy Joe Saunders left Frank Warren on amicable terms. I think Josh Warrington did too, and Sonny Edwards.
When Daniel Jacobs left the PBC, he didn't start trashing them as soon as he arrived at Matchroom. The same applies to Mikey Garcia. You can leave on amicable terms without burning bridges.
So why is Lawrence Okolie taking shots at Eddie when up until this point, they've gotten him to a world title? They've put money in his pocket, and sometimes
it's the promoter that's not treating the fighter right. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's the fighter's ego.
Sometimes it's the fighter's ego that causes problems. Look at Teofimo Lopez and Bob Arum and Top Rank ahead of what was supposed to be the George Kambosos Jr. fight. He felt he was being undervalued. He went his own way, and it blew up in his fucking face. You draw more flies with honey. That's what they say. And perhaps if Lawrence Okolie would have treated the situation differently.
Yeah, I think Matchroom would have let him go. Why spend money promoting a show for a fighter that's about to leave anyway?
Fiscally, it makes no sense. You sit down with Eddie, you have a conversation,
and you come to a mutual understanding, a mutual agreement, because you can't just go on your own and do your own thing while you're still under contract. And it very much seems like Lawrence is still under contract, because if he weren't, he would have popped up somewhere else by now.
I've been saying this throughout. I've been saying this since the whole thing kicked off. Lawrence is going about this the wrong way. At least outside looking in, that's the look of it. And finally, per a tweet from Michael Benson, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Zolani Tete, former WBO champion Zolani Tete, has tested positive for a banned substance in a UKAD test around the time of his knockout of Jason Cunningham back in July. Situation under investigation. Manager Mlandeli Tengfimne,
I don't think I pronounced that right.
he says we are confident that this is one big mistake. Yep, It's always a mistake according to the accused.
By now, you guys have got to know my stance on these situations. I've got the same stance on every single one.
Everybody's always got a convenient explanation as to how it is a banned substance is found in their system. So Zolani Tete, among many other fighters who have tested positive for banned substance and anti-doping tests, it comes as no surprise to me. It happened to Conor Benn earlier this year, but what stands out to me is I don't see the moral authority police. I don't see the same moral outrage in reference to Zolani's failed test that we saw earlier this year in reference to Conor Benn.
Why is nobody demanding that Frank Warren be nailed to the cross the way they were demanding that Eddie Hearn be nailed to the cross? Both Eddie and Conor.
Frank Warren has been in the Zolani Tete business for a very long time.
Zolani Tete.
Oh, I understand that former WBO bantamweight champion Zolani Tete perhaps doesn't have the profile here and now that Conor Benn has, but it's not profiles and marquee value.
Zolani Tete.
That's not the focal point. I thought the focal point was a cleaner, safer sport. I thought the focal point was anti-doping tests. I thought the focal point was
Harsher punishment for drug cheats as to deter any future drug cheaters from cheating by way of harsher penalties.
Zolani Tete is facing a 4-year ban. That's what he's facing. Not dissimilar from what Conor Benn is facing, more or less. But you'll notice that the moral authority police, they're eerily silent when it comes to this situation, whereas they were very vocal when it came to Eddie Hearn and one of his fighters. And I maintain my original position that anti-doping in a cleaner sport was not the focus of their outrage. They just wanted an opportunity to take shots at Eddie Hearn, because here we have a very similar situation to where this guy tested positive for a banned substance months ago, and we're just now hearing about it in November.
Why is nobody demanding Frank Warren give them answers?
Why ain't nobody criticizing old fish eyes to get in front of this thing and address the boxing community at large? Where is the moral authority? Where's the outrage? The same outrage we saw when it came to Conor Benn.
I told you, the boxing community at large and many of Eddie Hearn's critics in that situation were little more than a bunch of fucking hypocrites.
Just so happens that many of Eddie Hearn's biggest critics in that situation are big Tyson Fury fans. When Tyson Fury himself tested positive for a banned substance, many of the
people in the industry, the business side of boxing, the ones that took shots at Eddie, they've either worked or still work with fighters that have tested positive for banned substances.
And all the major news outlets in the sport, the ones you know, they're covering the story, they're getting it out there, but you don't see the same reaction to this story that you saw to the Conor Benn fiasco, and that was all over a fight that didn't even happen. This one did.
This fight did happen, and one of the guys, he ended up getting knocked out. Newsflash. It ain't the guy that tested positive for a banned substance.
So where are the altruistic people in the business and the altruistic boxing fans that care so fucking much about the fighter's safety? Where are they?
I told you then, those people don't give two furry fucking flamingo-shaped fucks about the fighter's safety. That was all bullshit.
They just wanted an excuse to take shots at Eddie Hearn and his prize stallion, because for whatever reason, they have something against Eddie Hearn. They, for whatever reason, want him to fail. Relish
in his failures.
They don't care about doping in the sport. They don't give two fucks about the fighter's safety.
So spare me the Sally Struthers routine. Won't somebody please think about the fighter?
We're all just a bunch of fucking hypocrites.
All he is.